The mechanical keyboard under my fingers fell silent as Derek's laugh cut through my concentration. I didn't need to look up from my triple monitor setup to know he'd brought his friends over. Again, the entitled tech bros from his startup who treated our shared apartment like their personal networking lounge. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Babe, you're still doing that? His voice carried that particular blend of amusement and condescension I'd grown to recognize over our 18 months together. The guys and I are ordering sushi. Real food, not those energy drinks you live on. I saved my work, a particularly elegant piece of penetration testing code I'd been refining, and swiveled my chair around. Derek stood in my doorway with two men I'd seen here before. Marcus, their lead developer, and someone new with slicked-back hair and an expression that screamed venture capital. Just finishing up some work, I said quietly, reaching to close my laptop. Old habit. Derek never understood what I actually did, and I'd learned months ago that explaining only invited more mockery. Work. Marcus snorted, leaning against the doorframe. That's cute. What is it this time? Another WordPress site for your aunt's book club? The new guy's eyes flickered with interest. You code? She thinks she does. Derek cut in before I could respond, moving to sling an arm around my shoulders with the casual ownership that had become his trademark. Maya's been building her portfolio for forever, mostly little hobby projects. Basic HTML stuff. My jaw tightened. The code I'd just been writing could have breached their company's firewall in under 3 minutes. Not that I would, yet. But the fact that Derek genuinely believed I spent my time on basic HTML after watching me work for a year and a half spoke volumes about how little attention he actually paid. That's cool, though, the new guy said, extending his hand. I'm Jason. Just joined Technova as the new CFO. Always good to see more women in tech, even at the hobbyist level. I shook his hand, maintaining my practiced smile. The same smile I'd worn through countless dinners with Derek's colleagues, through the company parties where I was introduced as Derek's girlfriend who does computer stuff, through the casual dismissals and patronizing encouragement. Nice to meet you, Jason. I kept my voice light, non-threatening. Exactly what they expected. Come on, let Maya join us for dinner, Marcus said. That particular tone men use when they think they're being magnanimous. She can tell us about her little projects. Derek says you've been working on something for months now. It's a security system, I said, before I could stop myself. For a security system? Derek laughed, squeezing my shoulder. Babe, you've been watching too many hacker movies. She's trying to build some kind of home security app. You know, like those Ring doorbell things, but probably way simpler. Marcus and Jason exchanged amused glances. The kind of look that said they were humoring the boss's girlfriend. Actually, I started. It's really sweet, though. Derek continued, talking over me effortlessly. She's so dedicated. Spends like 12 hours a day in here. I keep telling her she should just apply to one of those coding boot camps. They're designed for career changers, people without traditional CS backgrounds. They'd love her determination. The irony was suffocating. I had 3 computer science degrees, BS, MS, and PhD, all from institutions whose names would make these men sit up straighter. I'd published papers on cryptographic vulnerabilities that were cited in industry standards. I'd built systems that protected infrastructure for companies whose market caps exceeded Technova's valuation by factors of thousands. But Derek didn't know any of that. Neither did anyone else in my current life. Boot camps are great, Jason said with the confidence of someone who'd never attended one. My sister did one. Got her a job doing basic front-end work at a startup within 6 months. See? Derek beamed at me like I was a child receiving praise. That's totally doable for you, Maya. Way more practical than whatever you're doing now. I looked at the 3 of them standing in my doorway, in the apartment I paid for, and felt the familiar weight of the secret I'd been carrying. When I'd met Derek at a tech conference 20 months ago, I'd been burned out. Exhausted from 14 years of fighting to be taken seriously in rooms full of men who couldn't see past my age, my gender, my face. I'd just finished a grueling 6-month contract that had left me wealthy but hollow. Derek had seemed different that night. Sweet. Unimpressed by the tech world's posturing. He'd worked in operations at Technova, a mid-sized fintech startup, and had talked about building something meaningful rather than just chasing valuations. When he'd asked me out, I'd made a decision, an experiment, really. I'd told him I was between jobs, exploring my options, teaching myself to code. I wanted to be loved for who I was, not what I'd accomplished. I wanted someone who wouldn't see me as a meal ticket or a connection to exploit. I wanted normal. What I'd gotten was this: a man who loved the idea of mentoring his younger girlfriend, who enjoyed explaining basic concepts I'd mastered before he'd graduated high school, who felt bigger when I played smaller. "So what do you say?" Marcus was asking. "Join us?" "We're celebrating. Technova just landed a massive contract with Sentinel Financial Group." My attention sharpened despite myself. Sentinel Financial. I knew that name intimately. I'd consulted for them 3 years ago, building the foundation of their current security infrastructure. "That's huge," I said carefully. "What kind of work?" "Full digital transformation," Jason answered, practically glowing. "Payment processing, data management, security overhaul. It's a 3-year, $40 million deal." Derek pulled me closer, triumphant. "This is the big one, babe. The one that's going to put Technova on the map. We're talking IPO potential within 2 years." "Congratulations," I said, and meant it mostly. Derek's success wasn't something I begrudged. It was everything else. The disrespect, the casual dismissal, the way he'd grown comfortable treating me like his project rather than his partner. "Come eat with us," Derek urged, already pulling me toward the door. "You've been locked in here all day. Take a break from your thing." I let myself be pulled into the living room, where the coffee table was already covered with their laptops, energy drinks, and scattered papers. This was Derek's space now, really. His friends, his celebration, his moment. I'd become scenery in my own home. "So Maya," Marcus said once we'd settled on the couch with the sushi Derek ordered on my credit card, another habit he'd developed, "Derek says you might start looking for junior developer positions soon. Technova's actually hiring. I could put in a word, maybe get you an interview for our QA team. Quality assurance, testing other people's code for bugs." It was important work, but it was also the recommendation you made for someone you didn't think could actually build anything. "That's really kind," I said, "but I'm not sure I'm ready yet." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "Imposter syndrome," Jason pronounced with the certainty of someone who'd read one article on the topic. "Super common with women in tech. You probably know more than you think you do, Maya," Derek laughed. "She definitely has that. I keep telling her, babe, you don't need to be an expert to get started. Everyone begins somewhere. Where did you begin?" I asked him, genuine curiosity in my voice despite the frustration simmering underneath. "Me?" Derek straightened slightly. "I mean, I'm not really a developer. I'm operations. The business side. But I understand the technical stuff enough to manage the teams, you know? That's the key. You don't have to know how to code to succeed in tech." "Right," I said softly. "You don't have to know how to code," Marcus jumped in, eager to demonstrate his knowledge. "The real skill is understanding systems, architecture. Anyone can learn syntax. Hell, AI is going to do most of the actual coding soon anyway. It's the strategic thinking that matters." I bit my tongue against the response that wanted to surface. That understanding systems and architecture required deep technical knowledge. That AI was a tool that still needed skilled humans to use it effectively. That syntax was the least of what made someone a good developer. But I'd learned these arguments went nowhere. Men like Marcus and Derek had convinced themselves that their surface-level understanding was the same as expertise, and nothing I said would change that. "So what's everyone working on?" I asked instead, gesturing to their open laptops. "Oh, boring implementation stuff for Sentinel," Derek said, already losing interest in including me. "Contract negotiations, timeline planning, resource allocation. The real work starts next month." "Is this the security overhaul you mentioned?" I pressed gently. That seems complex. It is, Jason confirmed, with the air of someone about to explain something over my head. Sentinel's current system is pretty outdated. They need modern solutions. Blockchain integration, AI-powered fraud detection, quantum-resistant encryption. Cutting-edge stuff. My pulse quickened. Quantum-resistant encryption. They were planning to replace the elliptic curve. Cryptography I'd implemented, which would remain secure for at least another decade, with something that sounded impressive but was almost certainly buzzword-driven vaporware. Have you done that kind of work before? I asked, keeping my voice curious rather than challenging. We've got consultants, Marcus said dismissively. And honestly, most of it's just upgrading libraries and implementing existing protocols. Not rocket science. Not rocket science. Just the protection of financial data for millions of customers, the prevention of fraud that could cost billions, the security infrastructure that could make or break consumer trust. Totally simple. Well, I said, standing up, I should let you guys get back to celebrating. Congratulations again on the contract. Leaving already? Derek looked up, surprised. We just ordered food. I have work to finish, I said, gesturing back toward my room. Your security thing? Marcus asked, not quite managing to hide his smirk. What's it called again? I paused. I'd never actually told them the name of what I was working on, because I wasn't really working on a new project. What I'd been doing for the past 6 months was maintaining and updating my existing systems, consulting remotely for clients who knew me by my online handle, and monitoring the security landscape for emerging threats. Just a personal project, I said finally. Nothing exciting. That's the problem, Derek said, and there was genuine concern in his voice now, the kind that made leaving harder. You treat everything like it needs to be perfect before you show anyone. You've got to get comfortable being a beginner, babe. Nobody expects you to build the next big thing right out of the gate. The next big thing. I'd already built several, but he didn't know that, couldn't know that, because I'd chosen to hide it from him. This was my experiment, my attempt at normalcy, and it was failing spectacularly. I'll work on that, I promised, leaning down to kiss his cheek. Enjoy your celebration. Back in my room, my office, really, though Derek still thought of it as my computer space, I locked the door and let out a long breath. The 3 monitors hummed back to life, displaying the various secure channels and encrypted communications I monitored daily. My phone buzzed. A message from Elena, my business partner and one of the few people who knew both versions of my life. Elena. Heard Technova landed the Sentinel contract. That's your boy's company, right? I stared at the message. Elena and I had built our consulting firm, Phantom Security Solutions, 7 years ago. We'd intentionally kept it small, selective, and completely anonymous. Our clients knew us by reputation and results, not by faces or names. It had made us wealthy and kept us relatively free from the industry's toxic culture. Me. Yeah. His company. Elena. Sentinel's going to need help. Their current security is solid. Wonder who built it. But Technova doesn't have the expertise for that overhaul. Want me to reach out to their CTO? I looked at the closed door, hearing Derek's laughter filter through. He was probably telling another story about my cute attempts at coding, getting laughs from men who wouldn't last 10 minutes against the challenges I solved before breakfast. Me. Let me think about it. Elena. You know what I'm going to say. Me. That I should stop playing pretend and just tell him? Elena. That you should stop dating men who make themselves feel bigger by making you smaller. But yeah, also that this experiment of yours has gone on long enough. You're miserable. She wasn't wrong. I'd thought I could separate these 2 parts of my life, the respected cybersecurity expert and the struggling girlfriend trying to find her way. I'd thought maybe Derek would love the real me enough that the revelation of my success would be a happy surprise rather than a threat, but I'd watched him over these months. I'd seen how he lit up when explaining basic concepts to me, how he'd grown more confident as I'd played more helpless, how his friends had started treating him like a mentor figure to his technically interested girlfriend. I'd created a dynamic that fed his ego, and now I was trapped in it. Me. I need to figure some things out first. Elena. Well, figure them out fast. I have a bad feeling about this Sentinel situation. The timing seems off. I frowned at my screen. Me. What do you mean? Elena. They just hired us 6 months ago to audit their systems. Everything was solid. Now suddenly they need a complete overhaul? Either something changed, or someone convinced them they need changes they don't need. My fingers moved across the keyboard almost automatically, pulling up Sentinel's public information, their recent press releases, their executive changes. Nothing obvious jumped out, but Elena's instincts were rarely wrong. Me. I'll do some digging. Elena. Careful. Don't let your personal feelings cloud your professional judgment. Too late for that, I thought, but didn't type. Instead, I opened a secure connection and started probing gently at Sentinel's external security. Nothing invasive, just checking the public-facing infrastructure for changes since our last audit. Everything looked normal at first. The same protocols, the same encryption, the same carefully designed defense-in-depth strategy we'd implemented. But then I noticed something odd. New access patterns in their public DNS records, subtle changes that suggested someone had been mapping their infrastructure. Reconnaissance, the first step of any attack. I dug deeper, following digital breadcrumbs that would be invisible to most security professionals. Someone skilled had been studying Sentinel's systems, learning their patterns, identifying potential vulnerabilities. The probing was sophisticated enough to avoid detection by their standard security tools, but I knew my own work well enough to recognize when someone was testing it. The question was, who and why now? My phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Elena. It was an alert from one of my automated monitoring systems. Someone had just attempted to access one of my honeypot servers, decoy systems I maintained to track potential threats. I pulled up the connection logs, my pulse quickening. The attempt was crude compared to the reconnaissance I'd just observed at Sentinel, but something about the signature felt familiar. I traced the route back through several proxy servers and VPN connections, following the digital trail with the ease of long practice. And then I stopped, staring at my screen in disbelief. The connection had originated from an IP address I recognized, one I saw every day on my home network, from Derek's laptop. I sat back in my chair, mind racing. It had to be a coincidence. Maybe Derek had clicked on something malicious, had his system compromised. Maybe someone was routing through our network. There were dozens of innocent explanations, but that reconnaissance at Sentinel, the timing of Technova's contract, the sudden push for a security overhaul. I opened a new terminal window and did something I'd never done before. I scanned Derek's laptop on our shared network. It felt like a violation, crossing a line I'd promised myself I wouldn't cross. But I needed to know. What I found made my blood run cold. Derek's laptop was running several tools I recognized: penetration testing software, network mapping utilities, packet sniffers. All tools that could have legitimate uses, especially for someone in operations at a tech company. But configured together like this, running in the background without his knowledge. Someone had compromised Derek's system. Or Derek was running them himself. I heard his laugh from the living room again, loud and carefree. The sound of a man celebrating his company's success, his big break, his moment, or the sound of a man who just pulled off something he thought no one would ever discover. My hands hovered over the keyboard. I could lock down his system remotely, cut off whatever access he had, protect Sentinel before any real damage was done. But doing so would reveal my capabilities, would blow my cover completely, or I could watch, wait, gather evidence, figure out exactly what was happening before I made my move. Me, Elena. We need to talk. Securely. Now. Elena. Calling you in 5. I pulled on my headphones and waited. My eyes fixed on Derek's network activity. He was accessing something now, pulling data from what looked like Sentinel's preliminary architectural plans, the ones Technova would have received as part of the contract proposal. When Elena's encrypted call came through, I answered immediately. "Tell me I'm paranoid," I said without preamble. "Tell me I'm seeing patterns that aren't there because I'm frustrated with my relationship. What did you find?" Elena's voice was sharp, professional. This was why we worked so well together. She could switch from friend to partner in an instant. I walked her through everything. The reconnaissance at Sentinel, the honeypot attempt, the tools on Derek's laptop, the suspicious timing of the contract. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Maya, I need you to listen to me very carefully. This could be nothing. Incompetence, coincidence, bad security practices, or it could be something much bigger. I know. If Technova is running some kind of scam, if they're deliberately creating vulnerabilities in order to land contracts fixing them, or if someone there is planning something worse, you're uniquely positioned to stop it. But you're also uniquely compromised. Because I'm sleeping with a potential suspect. Because you're emotionally involved with someone who might be betraying you on multiple levels," Elena corrected. "Professional ethics aside, this could be dangerous. If Derek is involved in something criminal and realizes you can identify him..." I hadn't thought that far ahead, hadn't let myself consider that the man I'd been dating for a year and a half might be capable of actual malice. But Elena was right to be cautious. "What do you recommend? Officially? Report what you've found to Sentinel and let them handle it. Unofficially? I know you're not going to do that." Despite everything, I smiled. Elena knew me too well. "Here's what we do," she continued. "We approach Sentinel officially as Phantom Security. We tell them we've detected unusual activity around their systems and recommend an immediate, comprehensive audit. We don't mention Technova, we don't mention Derek, we just do our job. And when they hire us? When they hire us, you'll have legitimate access to investigate properly. You'll be able to track whatever's happening without tipping anyone off. And if Derek is involved, if this is bigger than just one person, we'll catch everyone involved." "Exactly. But Maya?" Elena's voice softened. "You need to be prepared for what you might find, and you need to decide now whether you can be objective about this." Could I? I looked at the closed door again, thinking about the man on the other side. The man who'd held me during panic attacks, who'd supported me through what he thought was my struggle to find career direction, who'd talked about our future together with genuine excitement. That man wouldn't be involved in corporate espionage or system sabotage. That man was sweet if condescending, dismissive, but not criminal. But I'd also learned over the years that people were capable of remarkable compartmentalization. The same person who was kind to their family could be ruthless in business. The same person who seemed supportive could be subtly undermining. And the same person who dismissed your capabilities might be terrified of what would happen if you actually demonstrated them. "I can be objective," I told Elena. "I have to be. Okay, I'll reach out to Sentinel's CTO tomorrow morning. Get some sleep, Maya, and please be careful. Don't let on that you suspect anything." "I won't." After Elena disconnected, I sat in the darkness of my room, watching Derek's network activity continue. He was downloading files now. Architectural diagrams, security protocols, access credentials. Everything someone would need to understand Sentinel's infrastructure intimately. Everything someone would need to compromise it. A knock on my door made me minimize everything quickly. "Yeah?" Derek opened the door, his face flushed with alcohol and excitement. "Hey, the guys are leaving. You want to come say goodbye?" I pasted on a smile. "Sure." In the living room, Marcus and Jason were gathering their things, still riding high on their celebration. "Sorry if we were too loud," Jason said, though his tone suggested he wasn't sorry at all. "Big day for all of us." "It's fine," I assured him. "Congratulations again." "You know," Marcus said, pausing at the door, "Derek's right about you applying to Technova. We're going to be hiring a lot over the next year with this contract. Even if it's just QA or documentation, it'd be good experience for you." Documentation. The job they gave to people who couldn't actually code. "I'll think about it," I said, my smile never wavering. After they left, Derek pulled me into a hug. "Sorry about that." Marcus can be kind of a dick sometimes. He doesn't mean anything by it. It's okay. No, it's not. Derek pulled back to look at me, and there was genuine affection in his eyes. This was the man I'd fallen for, the one who occasionally saw past his own ego to recognize mine. You work so hard on your projects? I shouldn't let them dismiss it like that. Thanks. I mean it, Maya. When you're ready to show people what you've been building, I'll support you. Even if it's just a simple security app, if it's something you're proud of, that's what matters. A simple security app. Even in his moments of support, he couldn't imagine I was capable of more. I appreciate that, I said. And I did, genuinely. It wasn't his fault he didn't know who I really was. I'd hidden it from him deliberately. Come to bed? He asked, his hands warm on my waist. I know I've been distracted with work lately, but I've missed you. I let him lead me to our bedroom, let him kiss me, let him make love to me with an enthusiasm fueled by his professional triumph. And the whole time, I thought about the tools on his laptop, the data he'd been accessing, the choice I was going to have to make. Later, after Derek had fallen asleep, I slipped back to my office. My phone showed a new message from Elena, time-stamped an hour ago. Elena, meeting with Sentinel's CTO tomorrow at 10 a.m. He's very interested in our audit proposal. Almost too interested. Be ready to move fast on this. I looked at the time. Nearly 2 a.m. In 8 hours, Elena would set in motion an investigation that might prove my boyfriend was involved in corporate espionage, or might prove I was paranoid and seeing threats that didn't exist. I pulled up Derek's network logs again, analyzing patterns, looking for anything I might have missed. The tools on his system were definitely active, definitely collecting data. But were they doing it with his knowledge? Or was he an unwitting pawn in someone else's scheme? My email pinged. A new message from an address I didn't recognize, routed through several anonymous servers. The subject line made my breath catch. I know who you are. I opened it carefully. Every security protocol active. The message was brief. Phoenix. Still playing pretend with the boyfriend? Cute. But you should know. He's not who you think he is. Neither is his company. Check their real contracts, not the public ones. The Sentinel deal is just the beginning. You have 48 hours before this goes public and people get hurt. Ghost Phoenix. My handle in the security community, known only to a select few. Ghost. Another handle I recognized. A hacker who operated in the gray spaces between legal and illegal. Sometimes white hat, sometimes not, but always effective. The fact that Ghost knew my real identity, knew about Derek, knew I was investigating, that was concerning. But the warning itself was worse. 48 hours before what went public. Before what? I ran a deep scan on the email's metadata, trying to trace its origin. But Ghost was good. One of the few people in the world who was potentially better than me at covering their tracks. The trail went cold after 3 proxy servers. I sat back, mind racing. Too many pieces, not enough pattern. Someone had compromised Derek's system. Maybe Derek himself, maybe someone else. Sentinel was about to hire us to audit their security. Ghost was warning me about Technova's real contracts and a 48-hour deadline. And somewhere in all of this was a threat serious enough to hurt people. The smart thing would be to loop in Elena, maybe even go to the authorities. But I'd spent too many years watching law enforcement fail to act on cybersecurity threats until it was too late. By the time they got warrants and approvals and believed that the threat was real, whatever was planned would be done. So I did what I did best. I started digging. Technova's public information was easy to access. Press releases, financial reports, employee listings. But Ghost had said to check their real contracts, which meant looking deeper, into places I wasn't supposed to be able to see. It took me an hour to breach their system. Longer than I would have liked, but they had decent security. Once inside, I found their private file server, the one where they kept confidential client information, internal communications, and strategic planning documents. What I found there made everything click into place in the worst possible way. Technova wasn't just landing security contracts. They were creating the need for them. For the past 2 years, they'd been systematically identifying companies with strong security infrastructures. Having someone on their team, I couldn't yet tell who, probe and test those systems to understand them, then deliberately introducing vulnerabilities that would make a comprehensive overhaul seem necessary. It was genius, in a horrifying way. Introduce subtle flaws in a company's security, wait for those flaws to cause minor but noticeable issues, then swoop in with a contract to modernize and upgrade their entire system. The affected companies thought they were making smart decisions to prevent future problems. They had no idea the problems were manufactured. Sentinel was their biggest target yet. And according to the internal communications I was reading, they had someone on the inside at Sentinel, someone who'd convinced the board that their current security was dangerously outdated, someone who'd pushed for the Technova contract specifically. The timeline was damning. The someone on the inside had started their campaign 6 months ago, right after Elena and I had completed our audit confirming Sentinel's security was excellent. I kept reading, my stomach sinking with each document. The scam was brilliant because it wasn't technically illegal. They weren't stealing data or causing actual breaches. They were just creating perceived vulnerabilities and offering expensive solutions. Corporate consulting taken to its most cynical extreme. But there was more. Something bigger. A folder labeled Phase 2 that was encrypted with military-grade security. I could break it, but it would take time I didn't have right now. I backed out of Technova's system, covering my tracks carefully. Then I started searching for evidence of Derek's involvement. His email was easy to access. We shared an iCloud account, one of those relationship decisions I was now grateful for. I started reading through his work correspondence, looking for anything suspicious. What I found was worse than involvement. It was ignorance. Derek genuinely had no idea what his company was doing. His emails showed a man focused on legitimate operations work, managing timelines, coordinating teams, handling logistics. He was excited about the Sentinel contract because it represented success, growth, opportunity. He had no clue it was based on manufactured need, but his laptop definitely had those penetration tools, which meant someone else at Technova was using him, had compromised his system to run their reconnaissance without his knowledge. Derek was a patsy, a useful idiot whose operational access provided cover for someone else's activities. I should have felt relieved. But somehow, discovering Derek was simply incompetent rather than malicious made everything worse. It meant the man I'd been dating, the one who'd grown comfortable dismissing my abilities, really was exactly what he appeared to be. A mediocre operations guy riding the coattails of other people's work. Too self-absorbed to notice when his own system was compromised. It also meant he was in danger. When this all came out, and it would come out one way or another, Derek would be an easy scapegoat. The malware on his system would make him look guilty. His operational access would make him the perfect fall guy. My phone buzzed. Another message from Ghost. Found the connection yet? Your boy's company is playing with fire. Check their financial records. Follow the money. It always comes back to the money. And Phoenix? When this breaks, make sure you're not standing too close. G Financial Records. I was already back in Technova's system, this time targeting their accounting databases. It took another 20 minutes to find what Ghost was hinting at. Technova was hemorrhaging money. Despite their success, despite their growing contract list, they were months away from bankruptcy. The reason became clear as I traced their cash flow. Someone was systematically embezzling funds, routing money through shell companies and offshore accounts. The embezzlement had started small 3 years ago, but had accelerated dramatically over the past year. Millions of dollars were disappearing, and it was being covered up by the increasing revenue from their security consulting contracts. But eventually the math wouldn't work anymore. Eventually someone would notice, unless they pulled off something bigger. Something that would bring in enough money to cover the missing funds and set up whoever was behind this for life. Phase 2. That encrypted folder suddenly became much more important. I pulled up my most aggressive decryption tools and set them running against the file. It would take hours, maybe days, but I needed to know what they were planning. Outside my window, the sky was beginning to lighten with the first hints of dawn. In a few hours, Derek would wake up, would kiss me good morning, would head off to work completely oblivious to the fact that his girlfriend had spent the night uncovering his company's crimes. In a few hours, Elena would meet with Sentinel's CTO and officially bring Phantom Security into this mess. In 48 hours, according to Ghost, something would go public and people would get hurt. I had 2 days to figure out who was really behind this, what Phase 2 entailed, and how to stop it without destroying Derek in the process. 2 days to decide whether the man sleeping in our bed deserved my protection or my justice. 2 days to stop being the dismissed girlfriend and become the threat they should have feared all along. I opened a new secure channel and began typing a message to Elena. We had work to do, and for the first time in 18 months, I was going to do it as myself, as Phoenix, as the cybersecurity expert who'd built the systems they were trying to tear down, as the woman they should have taken seriously from the start. The mechanical keyboard clicked rhythmically under my fingers, each keystroke a small act of reclamation. Derek had mocked my nerdy coding skills, had dismissed my hours of work as hobbyist tinkering, had never once considered that the girlfriend he was trying to mentor might be the one person who could bring down his entire company. He was about to learn, otherwise, and so was everyone else at Technova who'd underestimated what a woman with basic HTML skills could actually do. The game, as they say, was on. Derek's alarm went off at 7, pulling him from sleep with the cheerful melody he'd set months ago. I was already dressed, had been for hours, sitting at my desk with 3 monitors displaying more information than he could process in a lifetime. "Morning, babe," he mumbled, stumbling toward the bathroom. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, which was true enough. "Big day?" "Huge day. We're having our kickoff meeting with Sentinel this afternoon. This contract is going to change everything for us. For us. As if his success was our shared achievement, while my work remained my little hobby. "That's exciting," I said, watching him through the doorway. He looked so normal, so innocent. A man heading to work, completely unaware that his girlfriend had spent the night dismantling his company's entire operation. "You want to grab breakfast?" he asked, emerging from the bathroom. "I've got time before I need to head in." "I actually have a meeting," I said, the lie coming easily now. "A potential client." Derek's face lit up. "Maya, that's great. What kind of project?" "Security consulting," I said carefully. "For a financial services company. Look at you." He came over and kissed the top of my head, the gesture affectionate and patronizing in equal measure. "My little coder landing actual clients. I'm proud of you, babe. Even if it's just a small contract, it's a start." A small contract. Sentinel was paying Phantom Security $500,000 for this audit. But I smiled and accepted his praise, storing away the feeling for later. After Derek left for work, I had 30 minutes before my meeting with Elena and Sentinel's CTO. I used them to finish breaking the encryption on Technova's Phase 2 folder. What I found made my blood run cold. Phase 2 wasn't just about creating vulnerabilities and selling fixes. It was about creating a real breach, a massive one, at Sentinel Financial, then positioning Technova as the only company capable of stopping it. The plan was meticulous. Introduce ransomware that would encrypt Sentinel's entire database, hold their financial records hostage, then discover the breach through Technova's new security contract and heroically resolve it. The ransom would be paid to an offshore account, the same accounts where Technova's embezzled funds were being hidden. They'd get paid twice, once by Sentinel for the emergency response, and again through the ransom itself. Then they'd recover the data, Sentinel would be grateful, and Technova's reputation would skyrocket. It was audacious, illegal, and scheduled to happen in exactly 48 hours. Right after their kickoff meeting this afternoon, when Technova would have legitimate access to Sentinel's systems, The architect of this plan was revealed in the document's metadata. Jason Chen, the new CFO I'd met last night. The same Jason who'd called me a hobbyist, who'd talked about his sister's coding boot camp with such confidence. He'd been embezzling from Technova for years, and Phase 2 was his exit strategy. One final score that would set him up for life while destroying the company behind him. Derek wasn't mentioned anywhere in the plan. He was simply the useful operations manager whose compromised laptop provided cover, whose access credentials could be borrowed, whose incompetence made him the perfect scapegoat. My phone rang. "Elena, tell me you found something," she said without preamble, "because Sentinel's CTO just told me something very interesting." What? They've been experiencing minor glitches in their system over the past month. Nothing serious, but enough to make them nervous. Small data inconsistencies, occasional access delays, the kind of thing that could be normal or could be someone testing their defenses. It's someone testing their defenses, I confirmed. "Elena, this is bigger than we thought. I need to share some files with you, securely. I'm already on the secure channel. Send them." I transferred everything I'd found, the evidence of Technova's scam, the embezzlement records, the Phase 2 plan, the timeline showing Derek's compromised system being used for reconnaissance. Elena was silent as she reviewed it all, and I could picture her face, the way her jaw would tighten when she was processing something serious. "Maya," she said finally, "we need to involve law enforcement. This isn't just corporate espionage anymore. This is fraud, extortion, planned cybercrime on a massive scale. I know, but if we bring in the FBI now, they'll arrest everyone at Technova while they build their case, including Derek. Derek's laptop was used to commit crimes. Even if he didn't know, even if he was just careless with his security, he'll be destroyed," I finished. "His career, his reputation, everything. And he's not innocent exactly, but he's not guilty of this." Elena sighed. "I know you care about him. But Maya, you can't let that compromise the investigation. People's money, their financial security is at stake here." She was right. I knew she was right. But I also knew there was another way. "What if we caught them in the act?" I said slowly, an idea forming. "What if we let Phase 2 proceed but we're ready for it? We document everything. We stop the actual damage, and we get ironclad evidence of Jason's involvement. That's incredibly risky. It's also the only way to prove Derek wasn't complicit. If we move now, Jason will make it look like Derek was his accomplice. Derek's access, Derek's laptop, Derek's credentials, it'll all point to him. But if we catch Jason actively implementing the attack, if we show Derek was being used..." "You want to protect him?" "I want to protect the truth," I corrected, though we both knew it was more than that. Despite everything, despite the condescension, the dismissal, the way Derek had made me smaller to make himself feel bigger, I didn't want to see him destroyed for crimes he didn't commit. Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Okay, but we do this my way. We bring Sentinel's CTO into this right now at this meeting. We tell him everything. We set up monitoring on every access point. And we have a kill switch ready to shut down any attack the second it goes too far." Agreed. "And Maya? After this is over, you need to have a serious conversation with yourself about why you're protecting a man who doesn't even know who you really are." I didn't have an answer for that. The meeting with Sentinel's CTO, David Park, happened in a secure conference room at their headquarters. David was in his 50s, sharp-eyed and clearly intelligent, exactly the kind of person who would have chosen a strong security infrastructure in the first place. "Ms. Chen." "Ms. Rodriguez," he greeted us formally. Elena was using her real name, Elena Rodriguez, while I'd introduced myself as Maya Chen, keeping my first name but using my mother's maiden name. "Your firm came highly recommended." "Thank you," Elena said smoothly. "But before we discuss the standard audit, we need to talk about a more immediate threat." David's expression sharpened. "Go on." We spent the next hour walking him through everything we'd discovered. I shared my screen, showing him the evidence of Technova's scam, the pattern of manufactured vulnerabilities, the embezzlement, and finally, the Phase 2 plan. David's face grew progressively darker as he absorbed it all. "Jason Chen," he said quietly when we finished. "He's been our inside advocate for the Technova contract. He convinced the board that our current security was dangerously outdated." "How long has he been at Sentinel?" I asked. 6 months. He came from a smaller fintech firm, had excellent references. David's jaw tightened. "References that were probably fabricated or paid for." "Most likely," Elena confirmed. "He's been positioning Technova for this for years. Sentinel is just his biggest target, so what do we do?" David asked. "Cancel the contract? Call the FBI? We have a better idea," I said, and laid out our plan. David listened, his expression skeptical at first, then increasingly intrigued. "You want to let them attempt the attack, but have you ready to stop it and document everything?" "It's the only way to get evidence of active cybercrime," Elena explained. "Right now, we can prove embezzlement and probably corporate fraud. But the ransomware attack, that's what will put Jason away for decades. And it's the only way to definitively prove who else at Technova is involved." "And who's not involved," I added quietly. David's eyes shifted to me, understanding dawning. "You have a personal connection to Technova." "My boyfriend works there. In operations. His system has been compromised and used for reconnaissance, but he has no knowledge of any of this." "I see." David leaned back in his chair, thinking. "And if we move now, he becomes collateral damage." "Yes. But if we wait, if we let this play out, we risk actual harm to Sentinel's systems, to our customers' data. Not with us monitoring every access point," Elena said firmly. "We've worked with your infrastructure before. We know it intimately. We can create a sandbox environment that looks real but is completely isolated. When they deploy their ransomware, it'll encrypt dummy data while we trace every command back to its source." David considered this, his fingers drumming on the conference table. Finally, he nodded. "All right, but I want FBI Cyber Division on standby. The second anything goes wrong, we shut it down and arrest everyone involved." "Agreed," Elena said. We spent the rest of the morning setting up the trap. Elena and I worked with Sentinel's internal IT team, creating a mirror environment that would appear to be their production system, but was actually isolated and monitored. Every access point was logged, every command traced, every movement documented. David called Technova personally, confirming their afternoon kickoff meeting. He played his part perfectly, the concerned CEO eager to modernize his company's security, grateful for Technova's expertise. By noon, everything was ready. Elena and I were set up in Sentinel Security Operations Center, surrounded by monitors displaying every angle of their network. David sat with us watching. The FBI had a team in an unmarked van outside, ready to move on our signal. All we could do now was wait. At 2 p.m., Technova's team arrived at Sentinel. I watched them on the security cameras, Derek in his suit looking professional and confident, Marcus from marketing, carrying presentation materials, and Jason, the CFO, with a laptop bag that probably contained everything he needed to implement Phase 2. The kickoff meeting proceeded normally for the first hour. Presentations, discussions of timeline and scope, technical requirements. Derek was engaged, taking notes, asking intelligent questions about logistics and resources. He really was good at his job, I realized. He just wasn't good at understanding what mine actually was. Then, at 3:15, Jason asked for access to Sentinel's systems to run some preliminary diagnostics. David, playing his part perfectly, agreed and had his IT director provide credentials. On my monitors, I watched Jason's access begin. He was subtle at first, just exploring the system architecture, mapping out data locations, identifying critical files. Exactly what you'd expect from a legitimate security consultant. But then, at 3:42, he made his move. The ransomware deployment was sophisticated, designed to spread gradually through the system over the next several hours, before activating simultaneously at midnight. By the time Sentinel noticed anything wrong in the morning, their entire database would be encrypted, and Jason would be long gone, except he was deploying it into our sandbox. And we were recording everything. Got him, Elena muttered, her fingers flying across her keyboard. The ransomware is tagged and traced. Origin point confirmed as Jason Chen's laptop. No one else initiated the deployment. I was scanning Derek's network activity, my heart in my throat. Please don't be involved, I thought. Please just be the innocent idiot you seem to be, and he was. Derek's system showed normal operations work, reviewing timelines, updating project documents, sending emails to team members. He wasn't accessing Sentinel's systems at all. His compromised laptop sat idle in his bag, the malware on it quiet now that Jason was working directly. We have everything we need, David said, reaching for his phone. I'm calling the FBI. Wait, I said. Let him finish. Let him think it worked. Elena shot me a look. Maya? If we arrest him now, he'll claim it was a mistake, a test, anything to create doubt. But if we let him complete the deployment, if we let him send the ransom demand he's got drafted, we have him dead to rights. David hesitated, then nodded. 10 more minutes. Then we shut it down. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. I watched Jason work, watched him carefully plant evidence that would point to Derek as an accomplice. Files on Derek's laptop, emails forged to look like Derek had known about the plan, access logs that showed Derek's credentials being used. He was thorough. I had to give him that. If we hadn't been watching, if we hadn't known the truth, Derek would have been destroyed. At 3:57, Jason closed his laptop, smiled, and rejoined the meeting as if nothing had happened. At 3:58, I saved everything we'd recorded to multiple secure locations. At 3:59, David made the call. At 4 p.m., FBI agents entered Sentinel's conference room and arrested Jason Chen for attempted extortion, computer fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The look on Derek's face when the agents walked in would stay with me forever. Confusion, then shock, then dawning horror as they read Jason his rights. Marcus looked equally stunned, his presentation materials still in his hands. There must be some mistake, Derek said, standing up. Jason, what's going on? Sit down, Mr. Harrison, one of the agents said. Not unkindly, but firmly. We need to ask you some questions as well. Me? I haven't done anything. Your laptop has been used to conduct reconnaissance on Sentinel financial systems, the agent continued. We need to determine whether you were aware of this. Derek's face went pale. My laptop? That's impossible. I only use it for work. I wouldn't. It's okay, Derek, I said quietly, stepping into the room. Everyone turned to look at me. David, who knew I was coming. Elena, who stood behind me. The FBI agents, who'd been briefed on my role. Jason, whose face went from resigned to shocked. Marcus, who clearly had no idea who I was or why I was there. And Derek, who looked at me like I'd appeared from another dimension. Maya? What are you doing here? My name is Maya Chen, I said, walking to the front of the room and connecting my laptop to the presentation screen. But in the cybersecurity community, I'm known as Phoenix. I'm a senior partner at Phantom Security Solutions, the firm Sentinel hired to audit their systems. Derek's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Over the past 18 hours, my partner and I have been investigating unusual activity around Sentinel's infrastructure. What we found was a sophisticated scam run by Technova, specifically by Jason Chen, to manufacture security vulnerabilities and profit from fixing them. I pulled up the evidence on the screen, walking them through it methodically. The embezzlement, the pattern of manufactured crises at Technova's other clients, the Phase 2 plan, the ransomware that Jason had just deployed into our sandbox. Derek, I said, looking at him directly, your laptop was compromised approximately 8 months ago. Someone installed malware that allowed them to use your system for reconnaissance and to plant evidence that would make you look complicit. You are not being charged with any crime. The relief that flooded his face was immediately replaced by confusion, then something else, something that looked like betrayal. You, he said slowly, are a cybersecurity expert. Yes. You've been one this whole time. Yes. when I was explaining basic coding concepts to you, when I was encouraging you to try coding boot camps, when I was introducing you to my colleagues as my girlfriend who does computer stuff. His voice was rising now, color returning to his face as anger replaced shock. You were already one of the top people in the field, yes? Why? The question came out raw. Why would you lie to me? Why would you let me think? Why would you make me look like such an idiot? I didn't lie, I said carefully. I just didn't correct your assumptions. That's the same thing. Is it? I asked. Because you never asked, Derek. You never asked what I did before we met. You never asked to see what I was actually working on. You saw a woman at a computer and assumed hobbyist, assumed beginner, assumed you needed to mentor me. You never once considered I might know more than you. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's not fair, isn't it? How many times did I try to tell you about my work? How many times did you talk over me, explain things I already knew, dismiss my expertise because it didn't fit your image of who I was supposed to be? Mr. Harrison, one of the FBI agents interrupted, we still need to take your laptop as evidence. But Ms. Chen is correct. You're not a suspect at this time. We'll need a formal statement from you about your awareness of Mr. Jason Chen's activities. Derek nodded numbly, handing over his laptop. The agents led Jason out in handcuffs, the CFO's face impassive now, accepting his fate. Marcus approached me cautiously. So you're Phoenix? The Phoenix who wrote the paper on quantum-resistant protocols? Yes. And you've been dating Derek this whole time, just pretending to be a beginner? I wasn't pretending to be anything, I said. I was just being myself. It wasn't my fault everyone assumed that self was less capable than it actually was. Marcus had the grace to look ashamed. We were assholes to you. I was an asshole to you. Yes, you were. I'm sorry. I nodded, accepting the apology for what it was worth. Marcus left, and then it was just Elena, David, Derek, and me in the conference room. Mr. Harrison, David said, Technova's board will be informed of this situation within the hour. I suspect there will be significant changes to your company's leadership and operations. Am I fired? Derek asked quietly. That's not my decision to make. But I imagine Technova will have larger concerns than one operations manager who was unwittingly caught up in his CFO's scheme. David and Elena excused themselves, giving Derek and me privacy we probably didn't deserve but needed anyway. So, Derek said after a long silence, you're rich. Of all the things he could have said, that wasn't what I'd expected. What? Phantom Security Solutions. I've heard of you. $500,000 per audit, minimum. You've been doing this for how long? 7 years. So you're very rich. Yes, Derek, I'm very rich. He laughed, a bitter sound. And I've been buying you dinner on your credit card, telling you about my big promotion like it was something impressive, planning our future like I was going to be the provider. I never asked you to be the provider. No, you just let me think I was. He looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time. Why, Maya? Why would you do this? Was it some kind of game? Some social experiment to see how long it took for the dumb boyfriend to figure it out? No, I said and meant it. I wanted someone to love me for who I was, not what I'd accomplished. I wanted normal. I wanted a relationship that wasn't about my success or my money or my connections. So you lied? So I omitted, I corrected. And yes, it was a mistake. I see that now. But Derek, you never asked. In 18 months, you never once asked to see my work, to understand what I was actually building, to consider that I might have capabilities beyond what you assumed. Because you acted like you didn't. Derek's voice rose again. You played dumb, Maya. You let me explain things. You acted grateful for my advice. I accepted your support, I interrupted. When you offered to help, I accepted it, even when I didn't need it. Because I wanted you to feel good about yourself. Wanted you to feel needed. But I never played dumb, Derek. I just didn't perform being smart in the way you'd recognize. He was quiet for a long time, processing this. I don't know if I can forgive this. I know. You humiliated me. In front of my colleagues, my boss, everyone. They all think I'm an idiot now. They think you were a victim of a sophisticated scam, I corrected. Which is true. Jason used you, Derek. He compromised your system, used your access, tried to frame you for his crimes. I stopped that from happening, while also revealing that my girlfriend has been secretly one of the most respected people in the industry this whole time. Derek stood up, grabbing his jacket. I need to think about this. About us. Okay. Are you even going to come home tonight? Or is that just another thing you've been pretending about? It's my apartment, Derek. I paid for it before we met. And yes, I'll be home. He stopped at the door. How much of it was real? Any of it? All of it, I said softly. The parts where I loved you, where I wanted to build a life with you, where I supported your dreams. That was all real. I just wanted you to love all of me, not just the parts that made you feel important. Derek left without another word. Elena found me an hour later, still sitting in the empty conference room. The FBI is pleased, she said, sitting down beside me. Jason's lawyer is already talking about a plea deal. Turns out he's got evidence on several other people at Technova who were involved. Not in Phase 2, but in the earlier scams. The whole company is going down. Good. David wants to keep us on retainer for the next year. Said he's never seen security work that thorough. Good. And you're beating yourself up about Derek. How can you tell? Elena smiled sadly. Because I know you. And because you're an idiot. Thanks. Maya, you did the right thing. You protected him. You caught the real criminal. You proved Derek was innocent. The fact that he's upset about his ego being bruised is his problem, not yours. I lied to him for 18 months. You omitted information about your career. That's not the same as lying about who you are. And honestly, if Derek had loved you, really loved you, he would have been curious about your work. He would have asked questions, wanted to understand what you were passionate about. Instead, he made assumptions and never questioned them because those assumptions made him feel superior. I knew she was right. But it still hurt. What are you going to do? Elena asked. I don't know. Wait for him to decide if he can forgive me, I guess. And if he can't? Then I'll have learned an important lesson about honesty in relationships. Elena squeezed my shoulder. For what it's worth, I think you deserve someone who's excited by your success, not threatened by it. That night, I went home to the apartment I'd bought with my own money, decorated with furniture I'd selected, filled with technology I'd configured myself. Derek wasn't there. His clothes were still in the closet, his toiletries still in the bathroom, but he'd clearly gone somewhere else to think. I sat in my office, in front of my 3 monitors, and finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Relief that Jason had been caught. Satisfaction that Derek had been cleared. Grief for a relationship that had probably been doomed from the start. My phone buzzed. A message from Ghost. Nice work, Phoenix. Though you cut it closer than I would have recommended. Hope the boyfriend appreciates what you did for him. I typed back, how did you know about Derek? I make it my business to know things. Also, I've been tracking Jason for months. Knew he was going to make a move. Didn't know it would be on someone you cared about. Consider the heads up a professional courtesy. Stay sharp. 3 days later, Derek came home. I was in my office, working on a new contract for a healthcare company, when I heard his key in the lock. He appeared in my doorway, looking tired. Can we talk? Of course. We sat in the living room, the space between us feeling vast despite being only a few feet. I've been staying with Marcus, Derek said. Gave me time to think, to process, and Technova is imploding. Jason's arrested, the board fired everyone in the C-suite, the company's under investigation. They're trying to save it, but I don't know if it's possible. I'm sorry. Are you? He looked at me directly. Because this is what you do, right? You tear down security, expose vulnerabilities, destroy companies? No, I said firmly. I protect systems and catch people who abuse them. There's a difference, Derek nodded slowly. I'm trying to understand, Maya, I really am. But I keep coming back to the same question. How could you watch me explain basic coding concepts to you and not say anything? Because I loved you, I said simply. And I wanted you to feel good about yourself. I wanted you to feel like you had something to teach me, like you were valuable in the relationship. But I wasn't, Derek said bitterly. I was just the idiot boyfriend who didn't know his girlfriend was famous in her field. You were the man I chose to be with, I corrected. Your value wasn't in what you could teach me about coding, Derek. It was in who you were, or who I thought you were. And who did you think I was? Someone kind. Someone supportive. Someone who would love me even when I wasn't successful. I paused. I was wrong about the last part, wasn't I? You don't love me when I'm successful. You loved me when you thought I was less than you. Derek flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? You were proud of me when you thought I was learning basic HTML. You encouraged me when you thought I was struggling to land entry-level jobs. But now that you know I'm Phoenix, now that you know I'm more successful than you'll probably ever be, you can't even look at me without resentment. Because you lied. Because your ego can't handle it, I shot back. If I'd told you on our first date that I was Phoenix, would you have asked me out again? Would you have felt comfortable being yourself around someone you saw as more accomplished, more intelligent, more successful? Or would you have found excuses to distance yourself to protect your sense of superiority? Derek didn't answer, which was answer enough. I'm not sorry I protected you, I continued. I'm not sorry I caught Jason or cleared your name. But I am sorry I wasn't honest from the beginning. You deserve to know who you were dating, even if it made you uncomfortable. I don't think I can do this, Derek said quietly. I don't think I can be with someone who's so much more than me. I was always so much more than you, I said gently. You just didn't know it, and that made you comfortable. Derek stood up, and I knew this was it. The end of our experiment, the failure of my attempt at normal. I'll get my stuff this weekend, he said. When you're not here, if that's okay. That's fine. At the door, he paused. For what it's worth, Maya? You were right. I wouldn't have dated you if I'd known who you really were. I would have been too intimidated. And that says something pretty terrible about me, doesn't it? It says you're human, I replied. We all want to feel important, Derek. I just wanted to feel loved for more than my resume. After he left, I called Elena. It's over, I told her. I'm sorry, she said, and meant it. I'm not, I realized as I said it. I'm really not. I learned something important. What's that? That I don't want to be smaller to make someone else comfortable. That I deserve someone who's excited by my success, not threatened by it. That love shouldn't require me to hide. Damn right, Elena said. You're Phoenix, Maya. You're brilliant, successful, and powerful. The right person will love that about you, not despite it. 6 months later, I was giving a keynote speech at a major cybersecurity conference, the first time I'd appeared publicly as Phoenix. The audience was packed with people I'd worked with anonymously for years, all curious to finally see the person behind the handle. In the front row sat Elena, beaming with pride. Next to her was David Park from Sentinel, who'd become a good friend and regular client. And next to him, unexpectedly, was Derek. He caught my eye and smiled, small, genuine, and free of the resentment I'd seen that last day. After my speech, he approached me. That was incredible, he said. I mean, I knew you were good, but seeing you up there, hearing you talk about your work, I get it now. Why you did what you did. Thank you, I said carefully. I'm not asking to get back together, Derek said quickly. I know that ship has sailed, but I wanted to apologize. For not seeing you, for being so wrapped up in my own ego that I couldn't celebrate what you'd accomplished. I appreciate that. For what it's worth, I'm working with a much smaller company now, doing actual operations work instead of just managing timelines. And I've been taking some real computer science courses. Turns out I actually know a lot less than I thought I did. I smiled. That's good, Derek. Real growth. Yeah. He glanced back at the stage. You deserve someone who sees you, Maya. All of you. And who isn't afraid of how bright you shine. As he walked away, I felt the final weight of our relationship lift. He was right, I did deserve that. And for the first time in years, I wasn't going to hide my light to make anyone more comfortable. Ghost sent me a message that night. Good speech, Phoenix. Though you could have mentioned me when you talked about collaborative investigations. Just saying. Gee, I laughed and typed back. Next time. How did you watch it? I make it my business to watch things. Especially brilliant cybersecurity experts finally stepping into the spotlight where they belong. Proud of you. Gee, I powered down my laptop and looked around my apartment, my space, my achievement, my life. No more hiding, no more pretending to be less than I was. Just me, Phoenix, Maya Chen, cybersecurity expert, company owner, woman who'd learned the hard way that the right person would love her for all of it, not in spite of it, and I was okay with that. More than okay, I was free. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out! And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.